Okay. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker. Today we've got Deron Miller of 96 Bitter Beings. He's got a new album coming out November 4th. It's called Synergy Restored. Deron, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm not too bad at all. I'm very excellent, actually. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I've been a huge fan for years, so I'm super excited to have this opportunity to talk with you, to pick your brain a bit. People know you at this point mostly for your work with CKY and now, of course, 96 Bitter Beings. But post CKY and before, you also have had a couple of other projects like Foreign Objects and World Under Blood. And what I've noticed is you have this very particular touch between your guitar work and your incredibly distinctive vocal delivery. How have you approached these different projects over the years, and has 96 Bitter Beings felt like a bit of a homecoming to you?
Definitely. It's definitely felt like I'm just progressing and doing what I did with CKY, just taking it to the next level without it being
Mhm.
that band. I approach everything the way that every project that I try to do, I try to make it as good as what I loved about what motivated it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if I'm doing something like death metal, I have my favorite bands and my favorite records, and I just, over time, I just developed my own sense of what it would sound like if I did my own. I never even thought I was gonna get to do a death metal record.
It's killer. That's a great album, man. A
Thanks,
God
man.
Among the Wastes. Holy crap, dude. Oh,
And
yeah.
I wanted to combine like elements of different kinds of metal into that, but I
Yeah.
wanted it to be super fast and aggressive, which those things, melody and super fast and aggressive,
Mhm.
don't usually work together
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the way that I wanted them to work together.
Mhm.
A lot of I guess it's metalcore bands were doing that, but they had some kind of formula that
Mhm.
that I didn't really jive with. So I just wanted to combine like old school with new school and then everything else in between.
Yeah,
And
of
even
course.
rock in there.
Yeah, it's like melodic death metal compared to like melodic death metal, you know. It's the
Exactly.
same idea from like a different like approach, I guess, is what it
Yeah.
seems like. Yeah, no, it's killer stuff. Um, Next question I got is I'm looking over here because I got all my notes pulled up, but with the band name 96 Bitter Beings as a pull from the CKY track, I was wondering, I remember hearing this, and it might be wrong. I remember hearing the first song off of some of the CKY records was a continuation of a story presented in 96 Quite Bitter Beings, and that like into Escape from Hellview, into I think like Hellions on Parade. So is that
Mhm.
true? And if so, has that continued into this new project at all? And like I said, I don't even remember where I heard this. I don't know if this was like something I made up, but is that a thing?
It is a thing. It
Yeah.
is. The first time Hellview was ever mentioned was in on a song called "Thanks for the Ride." That was that we had recorded for a band that we had called Oil, which is a
Mm.
terrible name. But in 1996, it was like, ooh,
Ooh.
Oil.
Yeah.
But it was in the song "Thanks for the Ride." And back
Mm.
then, I put no emphasis and no um, interest in lyrics. We were playing shows, and I didn't even have lyrics for the songs.
Huh.
I just didn't think that they were important. I don't know why. I guess because I wasn't
Huh.
a singer. I had to sing. I wasn't a singer, so I just kind of riffed.
Okay,
I
so you had
I
kind of like a
scattered.
Mustaine situation where you just
Yeah,
happened to pick up singing as like a circumstantial thing.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
there was no other option. So I never really cared about the lyrics. I guess because I had been listening to so much death metal, and I didn't. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
100%.
I can't imagine doing that now, and I can't even remember what I was thinking, but it just wasn't important. And for some reason, I was scatting on most of the Oil stuff. Eventually, we had to
Mhm.
write lyrics, and I think I did it in 5 minutes before we recorded them. Eventually, for some reason, I just scattered out the word Hellview, and I don't have any idea where it came from. But a lot of
Okay.
there's some people out there, I guess, Wikipedians that found out about that, but it's not really in it has nothing really to do with the story because Thanks for the Ride is about nothing. So,
Mhm.
but it is mentioned in there, and then 96 Quite Bitter Beings, we mention it again, and it just
Mhm.
became something that happened. It happened on its own. There's
Just
no
like a recurring thing.
Yeah, it organically happened. It was just mentioned, and then people talked about it, and were like, "What is Hellview?" And just made its way into other songs, and then all the Hellview songs kind of became short stories about
Mhm.
this. favorites, you know, but
Yeah.
it's put to rest right now, but I mean, it could always come back, you
Yeah,
know.
I was just curious about. I mean, I didn't obviously like. There's a ton of CKY stuff, like that's being pulled for the new album, like sonically. I didn't hear
Mhm.
anything about Hellview in there. I wasn't sure if that was like like a simple or a very nebulous concept. So I figured I'd ask. I was curious. Um, a bit of a left field question, but how do you get your guitar tone? Like I was watching some of the more recent videos, and I noticed you weren't playing a Parker anymore. Like, what's your current rig look like?
I'm playing esoteric guitars.
Hmm.
Um, they're out of California, Southern California.
Killer.
Um, they're really, really nice, really great guitars, great people working there. Um, Basically, to get my tone, it's just a lot of people think it's just, I'll grab an OC2,
Mhm.
octave ped, Boss octave pedal, and that's what we need, what I need. But
Yeah,
the truth is that I think that I've been told so many times that I have my own style, that to just plug in that pedal and start playing
it's
isn't all
not the
that it is.
sauce.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not. Yeah, it's just part of it. Yeah, you'll get the tone, but you can't play chords. I mean, I don't play chords with it. I'm
yeah.
very simple note oriented
It's like a
songwriter.
it's like a chunkier Iron Maiden.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
killer.
it's because single notes, to my ear, when of course I've been putting up with it because I love albums that have this, but
Yeah,
one of my favorite albums is Death Spiritual Healing, and they're all single notes.
dude, yes.
Yeah. And that's where that album is pretty much where I came up with the idea to base my entire career off of writing single note songs, that album in particular. Now, I always had thought maybe the guitars could be a little bit fatter, and I always thought, maybe they should have done two more rhythm guitars each or something.
Yeah,
Maybe they should have overdubbed a little bit and kept it tight. But I was just playing at home, on an amp in 1997 in Westchester, living off East Barnard Street. Went down the street, walked over to Al
walk over
Bean's.
to Fairman's or Mad Platter or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Right near Mad Platter was Al Bean's music store.
Hmm.
And I was looking, I saw these Boss pedals, and I was like, no, these have to sound cool if I like. So I was just used to playing through a dry amp,
Yeah,
practicing. So it just so happened I picked up a Boss amp. I saved up $1,000. I bought a Parker guitar, and when I plugged it in, I was like, man, this gives that fatness that single notes need if you're going to use them for entire songs.
yeah.
So that it was just right there. It wasn't anything premeditated, or I didn't think, oh God, I got to go out and get this off,
It
Boss pedal to use.
yeah,
It was
it
nothing
wasn't.
like that.
That's God. That's just like the ultimate coincidence. Then love that.
It was a total coincidence. It was lucky that it sounded good to other people,
Hmm.
because at first I thought maybe it's a little bit too buzzy, but I kind of had this idea in my head from being um, influenced by other bands that were kind of like spacey and fuzzy kind of sounding. I kind of wanted it to sound like it was there was bad interference, like there something wasn't totally right while it
Mhm.
was, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I did that with Foreign Objects. I wanted the guitars to sound like on the album Universal Culture Shock. I wanted them to sound like there was something wrong with the transmission, that there was a bad reception in there. And I kind of got that without it sounding annoying. Like kind of like My Bloody Valentine kind of influenced me on that.
nice, nice, good pull.
Pestilence on their album Spheres. They just had this science fiction kind of spacey sound to it, and I went for that. And the octave pedal was the first place where, or that album was the first place I used the octave pedal. Was Universal Culture Shock, and then started doing demos for CKY and decided to use it, and
Just
it
kind of worked out, huh?
it worked out perfectly. It melds really well with the bass, and it just, I mean, some of those early mixes of Volume 1 songs are just so fat. It's crazy. Then we
Yeah,
didn't, you add all the other stuff all the atmospheric stuff that I like to add, and
yeah.
keyboards and all that stuff, just to make one whole thing.
Fill it out, make it nice and well rounded. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. Have there been any pieces of gear that you've been like really dying to get your hands on?
it's a good question. I'm trying to get every single Boss pedal that they have.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you know what? It's
I
funny.
love that.
I'm not a gearhead. I'm not a gearhead. I never been. I knew I wanted a Marshall 2000. I just bought one
Mhm.
of those Marshall 2000 head. I took it on tour. It sounded okay. I eventually had to like switch it out for something else for a
Mhm.
message because those Marshall heads aren't really roadworthy. They don't take,
A
you
little
know, hits.
delicate.
Yeah, they're a little delicate, and especially when you're turning up loud.
Mm.
But I had a lot of pedals on this last tour. I had the synth pedal. I had the acoustics. There were so many, and I had to take them all off because they didn't sound right. So I decided to like less was more. But when I'm in the studio or I'm demoing stuff or whatever, I love to use all
It's
the
just pedal
pedals.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that. Hell yeah.
that's
I-
it. I mean,
you know,
it's
I saw Parker and like you got what was the brand again for the guitars you're using now? It,
esoteric.
yeah, esoteric and like I saw like the funky guitars and I was like, there's got to be like something that like he's into. So
Yeah,
the fact
yeah.
that it's Boss pedals, it's like mind blowing, but like perfect. I love that. Are you
Well,
getting
because
like the different eras and stuff too, like the Taiwan and the Japan and all that, or are you just getting like at least one?
it's
You
all
know?
about like it's a cool color. If it's a
Yeah.
cool color, I'll buy it. You know what's funny is that if I did know all this stuff, if I knew how to fix a guitar, if I knew how to replace a tube in an amp, if I knew anything about recording,
Be
I would
gloves
lose,
off.
I would lose it. I would lose the some of the passion for it because it would be never ending. I would never be able to please myself. I'd always want to, and that's already bad enough, you know,
Yeah.
when I have to go back and say this isn't right, this isn't right. And I'm terrible in the mixing stage of a record. I'm a douche. I mean, I'm
Mm.
just like, this is not right. You know, we have to start over, and eventually you lose everything. So if I
Do it
knew how
again.
to, yeah, if I knew how to do all this shit, I'd be a total nightmare. So I just limit myself, not limit myself, but my job is to come up with the music,
Mm.
and I'm totally happy with that.
I respect that. All right.
But I don't know how to fix. I know how to change strings, but I don't know how to do anything else with a
You
guitar.
know, you only need to know so much.
Yeah,
Whatever, right? I think you've probably been asked this a decent number of times, but with the name 96 Bitter Beings, has there been a bit of an odd attachment with your old band, sort of like Jeff Tate performing under the Operation Mindcrime moniker, as
yeah.
opposed to like Queensryche? Like, how have you navigated things with this artistic and thematic continuation compared to like the other band?
Well, it's purely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. First of all, the song 96 Quite Bitter Beings was never a hit, was never played on radio, yet it is by far the biggest song I ever wrote.
Fucking
Then
rips.
my grandmother turned 96. And, on September 1st, she turned 96. Now she's 102.
Wow.
But when she turned 96, I said, this number jumps up everywhere. Everywhere I go, if I look for it, I'll find a 96 somewhere. Whether I'm watching TV, it's just really weird. I have this thing with numbers where it's I feel like I'm sometimes people are trying to get in touch with me through numbers, and it's really bizarre. But that's for a different story. But
No worries.
I wanted people to be able to be like, okay, that's that CKY song, and then to just kind of make it easier, I guess, to follow me and find out where I am. And I just think that I just love that title. I love that title of the song, and it was the first song that you know woke what people saw what was going on with us and who we were, and it just felt natural to name the band that,
Yeah,
because
just clicked,
I
huh?
think a lot more people know that song than they do the band CKY. So
It's like crazy. Like you mentioned CKY and people are like, who's that? And then you go Bernadette, and they're like,
yeah,
oh, that song. And you're like, yeah,
people were saying I should name the band Bernadette Nair, and I was just like, that doesn't really translate well, I don't think.
no, I mean oh God, that would be
And
that would be
everybody's saying how the Queen. I get all these messages. You think the Queen was supposed to die when she was 96? I'm like, I don't know. That's taking it a little bit too far, but the number pops up a lot.
it's good comedy.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre, but yeah, 96 comes up a lot. 96, I was 20 years old. It was a great year in 1996 for me.
There you go. Okay. So we've got this new album, Synergy Restored, out November 4th. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to hear it in advance. And pertaining to the new album, is there older material that you're drawing on or building on in particular? Because a lot of this material makes me feel like it's a development on Campaign, obviously, but
Mm,
also like a bit on like Carver City. Like it feels like it's pulling from kind of every ethos. But is
mm.
there like any particular songs you went back and listened to, or like different like riffs that you went back to and were like, how can I rework or like pull from these, you know?
Well, Campaign and Synergy were recorded at the same
More or
time.
less, yeah. I
And
was reading that.
yeah, and we had been working on it for years. And the thing that's cool about both of the records is that just like Volume One, CKY's Volume One, the first record, working on these as our first albums has been
Mhm.
years in the making. Some of the songs on Campaign and Synergy are 5, 6 years old,
Wow.
and some of them were written right before we were ready to mix. So we had all that time to pick through and go through. I had done some demos with a couple people over the years, and I was like, "Wow, these are really good." And I wanted to make sure that through all the work that we had done over the years and all the things that I was fiddling with, I wanted to scrap everything that wasn't, instantly,
Like top notch.
yeah, instantly hits you like hard. So what's so great about these two records is that I think that of all the work that me and the other guys have done in the last 6 years has come to these two records and filtered out everything else. I already have the third album started.
No
There's
shit.
already there's already three or four ideas down. So yeah, I
All
mean,
right.
at the title of it and everything. I mean, it's just it's crazy. We've been waiting ever since COVID started. We've been waiting years to see the release of this record, and it's just been so frustrating. But now it's like kind of, there's this tension of, wow, it's finally happening.
Yeah, no, that's killer, dude. And the fact that you're already like working, I mean, I guess creativity like never stops its flow, so you got to kind of just get it out. But
Yeah,
it's for me, it's personally just really exciting. I'm so stoked that like you as like a creative force have come back to like work on this sort of sound. As much as I love like World Under Blood and that, the other projects you're working on, I love 96 Bitter Beings and CKY's style. It's like such a unique corner of like music. Like no one sounds like that.
right.
There's
And
people,
it's
there's things that sound similar, but no one sounds like that.
right, exactly. And I've always been in defense of that when, like, over the years, whatever trend is going on, people try to compare us to a band in that kind of music. We were skate punk, we were new metal,
Mhm.
we were, and it's like we never sounded like any of that. And we were kind of like,
Genreless
yeah,
almost.
genreless, and like people didn't really know what to make of us. They just kind of like, you either got it or you didn't. And
Mhm.
I'm so tied to that sound that you're talking about, and that I feel that I can't do anything else. If I'm doing rock music and I try to go off of that path, I always end up coming back to that. So it's just totally nailed. I'm nailed to it. It's just
Mhm.
forever. You're gonna be able to know, if you know who I am or what we're doing, you're gonna be able to instantly say, oh, that's,
Like that's
you know,
Deron on there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So, and I'm glad to have that. I'm lucky to have that.
Yeah, being like a musician that is like distinguishable from a crowd. Like,
Yeah,
there's a million singers and a million guitar players, million
millions,
songwriters.
and it's so
And
hard.
dude, yeah, to stand out, that's fucking crazy. Like, good for you. Goddamn.
I know it's been decades of defining it, and being original in any capacity is so difficult, and the competition has always been difficult.
Hmm.
But I get songs from fans and friends of bands that they have, and they're just like, what do you think? And I'm just like, man, I've heard this. I feel like I've heard this a million times. And you want to kind of, without they ask for advice
You're
or
trying
opinion.
to turn down the cocky bastard type thing.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
totally
just like,
get it.
how can I say this? It's like, you gotta, to do anything nowadays is hard enough, but to find your own sound and to stick out from everybody else is the most difficult thing today.
Yeah.
It was hard back then, but it's even even more difficult now that anybody can record. And usually stuff that sounds like everything else is the stuff that gets up there, but there's bands like Ghost that have their own sound. And you can tell by usually the voice, but you could tell when Metallica is Metallica and Megadeth. But if you're going to be in a metal band or a rock band, there has to be something distinctive.
There's got to be a thing.
There has to be a thing where people are like, what is this? And that's the last time I heard that was Ghost. When that first Ghost record came out, I was like, what is this? Like, this is different. I mean, it sounds a little familiar, but there's a different vibe to it. And sure enough, look what happened. So
yeah, they're huge.
Yeah. And Korn was the same way. When Korn started, it was like, whoa, what the fuck is that?
What the fuck is going on there? Yeah, that checks out. Okay. When you're writing tracks, how do some of these ideas end up coming together? Do you like write stories and write songs around them, or is it kind of like having a loose concept or framework and then just fleshing it out from the themes, or is it more simple? Like, how in depth does this writing get for a lot of these ideas?
It's formulaic. I always used to say, oh, well, there's different ways, but there isn't. There's one way. It's me sitting on the floor with my guitar for hours until I come up with something that sounds interesting, which is hard because playing guitar, I can look at a guitar and know what it's going to sound like before I even play something. And it's very limiting and it gets very frustrating. But if you're inspired or motivated to do it, something will happen eventually. It's just kind of like you have to count on that. So when something comes up that I think is cool, I'll mic my amp, hit record on the old 4-track cassette recorder
and just give her a go, huh?
And put it down, and then I'll revisit it and I'll write the rest of it until it becomes a skeleton of a song, and then start working on it. And from there you lay down everything, and then the vocals and the lyrics come last.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't write lyrics until you have a blueprint, so that makes perfect sense.
I think I've done that before.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's weird because then you're writing around words and
like syllables and shit.
Yeah.
It's
like how can you write music around words but people do it and they write great songs that way. But I think I've only done that once and it wasn't too thrilled with the results. So
you ever experiment with anything like new standard tuning or like weird alternative tunings just to kind of get stuff flowing?
No, because I'm so afraid that I'm not going to be able to remember to live, you know what I mean? Like it starts to get like really confusing after that. Like if I was going to change tuning or something, usually what I try to do is I try to play what that would be with standard tuning. So, but I'm not really much of a chord person. If you listen to all my music, I'll do chords for emphasis, but it's mainly usually single notes with atmosphere and catchy vocals.
Hopefully. So on this album, what songs are you the most proud of?
I love Taken by Surprise. I love Fire Skyline. I think Adios Amigo is awesome.
Killer.
I can't pick one that, because they were so, you got to understand, we put a microscope under every single one of these songs. We probably recorded like 50 or 55 or something like that. And a lot of them got scrapped, and it was like, I wanted to have the opening track of 11 opening tracks. You know how the first song is always the strongest. I wanted to have 11 of those.
You just send it all the way through. Yeah. God, that makes sense. I wonder just like how many people have that idea, like specifically like every track has just got to be like any of these could be the opening track if you switched them out, which I mean, shit, I've always been like, the strongest track should be like the top and bottom of the album, and the middle, if it's filler, that's a bummer, but like it should always start, strong and end with a bang. And for it to work in any order, that's fucking awesome. I love that.
And filler is something that I've always struggled with, because
you got to avoid it,
over the years. There's been I don't finish anything that I planned, that I know I'm going to scrap in the back of my mind. But there's been ideas where people are like, oh man, that's so awesome. And I'm like, I it's not jiving with me. I don't do it. And there was one song written for Synergy that turned out okay, but then at the last minute I was just like, nah, gotta pull it because it doesn't go, it's not as strong as the rest.
Mm.
So, that's been my whole thing with filler, is that I can't do filler, because in the back
Yeah.
of my mind I'll always know. And there are songs that are considered filler by the fans,
Mm.
but that I still see a special connection to.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I've never written a song that I didn't like. Of course, there are least favorites and favorites, but I
Yeah.
always try to. It's hard. It's a lot of hard work to scrap the stuff that you've worked a long time on, but that's just part of the process. Is you got to
Mm.
let
Got to
stuff
trim the
go.
fat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I couldn't live with knowing that there's a filler song on an album. It just would drive me nuts.
Yeah. No, God, I love that mentality.
And there's a
Um,
lot of filler on a lot of stuff. Even our
dude,
favorite albums, there's
oh my
filler.
God. All the time, man. Like doing like from my point of just like reviewing albums and like listening to new shit all the time, that like a lot of artists I've never even heard before, and you hear these albums and you're like man, like the first three songs are great, why did you put out the rest of these, like like there could have been so much more, that you could have done here. You could have waited like maybe 6 more months and everything would have been dialed in. But like, it's so refreshing that like, just like waiting until it's all good, just to get it out. Cause fuck, man, there's so many bands, just even on like a long time period, who are just unwilling to cut out the bullshit. Like, albums don't need to be an hour long, like 90% of the time, like 40
Right.
minutes to like 20, even 20,
I'd
if
say
it's just solid
36.
shit. 36.
36 minutes is the perfect, and this album is 36 minutes, I believe. I'm not sure,
Yes.
but I think it is.
There's like around 40 or just shy of, yeah.
And I think you're totally right. And then I think it comes from bands being content and being on autopilot and
Hmm.
realizing, okay, this is my job, and I've been there. I've been there, and I think it shows in the album "An Answer Can Be Found" that we were kind of like on autopilot, and not really taking things for granted, and not being grateful,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think. And then we were working so much that it started to become routine.
Yeah.
And when it came time to make that record, it was kind of like, well, now it's time to make a record. And that's something that I wish I could go back and slap myself in the face and say, wake the fuck up. This is something that,
Focus.
yeah, that you're really lucky to be doing. And now I'm back at that point again where I realize that this is very, very, very important, and music is very important to people, and it's so important to me that I need to realize that I have to make the best that I can do, and the passion is back, and it's just extremely important that I don't go back on autopilot, and not being grateful for the chance and the opportunity to do this, because not many people get to do this.
Oh yeah, this is not quite pertaining to the new album stuff, but I was curious as well, with the notoriety of hijinks that touring musicians have a tendency to get up to, if you had any fun tour stories that you might like to share, especially coming from the crowd, like the whole CKY as a concept being, the videos as well as the band, if you got anything you would like to share.
I can tell you, God, I get asked this a lot, and I try to come up with a story that's both interesting and can be told,
Hmm.
because some of the stuff is so horrible. And there, I mean, if you I wish I had one in particular, but I can't. They're just so repulsive and
Mm.
hilarious that it would do a lot of damage for me to say. But
That's
anything, I
fair.
mean, from the violence to nudity to sexual stuff to blood, and like, here's one. Okay, we had some girls come back to a hotel, and we had a hot tub, and they got really drunk, and they were starting to annoy us, so we took the vegetable tray from that somebody had
Like a
ordered.
tour rider or something or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and we started throwing vegetables in, and shooting mustard at them and all that stuff, and we called it groupie soup. Now that, that's not anywhere near one of the
The
most,
worst things or
the worst,
vile.
but it's one that still cracks me up, and I had forgotten about it. And most of them I do forget until somebody reminds me. But Matty
I love
J
that.
reminded me of that. Yeah. But I mean, just what's crazy is traveling around this country today. The things we saw
Hmm.
in Seattle and Portland are just insane, man.
Hmm. Hmm.
Naked people walking around talking to themselves, and people, and right next to them there's a family pushing a stroller. It's just
Dude.
like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, like Denver's getting the same way out here. Like there's like the homeless problem is like it's a problem. Like,
Yeah, it's
damn.
insane. It's fucking insane. And the amount of people that have conversations with themselves, it's unreal. I would love, I'm so curious as to what what is going on in the mind where you ask and answer yourself. It just really boggles my mind. And I know it's drugs, but I mean,
Yeah.
I want to look further into that psychologically and maybe like write about it. But
Yeah.
it was interesting. A lot of people are hooked on that fentanyl stuff, I guess,
Hmm.
and they're just freaking the fuck out. It's like zombie apocalypse or something.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying, and it's just like, God, you feel so bad for these people, and what can you do? Nobody's doing anything about it. It's just fucked. But it's good for writing
Yeah. Yeah. That's
topic to
fair.
write, subject to write about, because if I could do something about it, I would. But what the fuck can anybody do? It's
Yeah.
really fucked up out there, east and west coast, and then everybody's bored in the middle.
Hmm. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah,
Yes.
that's just kind of how it goes, man. I think the key to it is just like, having empathy, having some amount of like, like respect, and like,
Yeah,
like you don't have to take that shit on because you're just like a dude. Like I think that's just the way to get through it. So you just got to kind of be like, well, I'm not the solution to this. Let's just move on with our lives, but like don't try and make anyone shit any harder,
right.
like,
And at the very least, maybe I'm hoping that I can be preventative.
yeah, of
You know,
course.
because I talk to a lot of, I try to talk to as many fans as I possibly can, and a lot of them have fucked up things going on in their life, and
Hmm.
I try to, if I have any experience in the topic, I'll try to tell them. But there's some really a lot of fucked up stuff going on, and it's a lot different from 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And so I take a lot of effort into trying to be preventative, and trying to help as much as I can with individual people that have these problems that are very familiar to problems that I used to have.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's nothing that can be done about you know
Be
these.
supportive and just kind of be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, we got one last one for you. I'd like to lighten it up a little bit. For a last left field question, I'd like to go back a little ways to the Deron Miller lore or backstory, since you are coming from the East Coast to the West Coast. You were born
Mhm.
in Chester, Pennsylvania. I myself was born in Westchester, Chester County Hospital. What is the ideal Philly cheesesteak, sir?
Oh, it's got to be 4th Street on South Street. 4th of South. Can't remember. Fuck. They have a line out the door every fucking night, and I can't remember what the hell they're called. Tony's, I think.
It's
Bacon.
possible.
So you were born in Westchester?
I was born in Chester County Hospital. I got a bunch of family out back. Yeah,
Oh
back
shit.
east. Yeah.
I was born at Crozer Hospital.
Huh. Yeah, it's
Dump. But
I
that's crazy.
mhm.
But as far as cheesesteaks, man, I fucking I forget, man. I wish I could answer that question. I just remember it was a silver building, because I haven't been to Philly in like over maybe 15 years.
No shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I remember hanging out on South Street a lot. We used to play all the clubs on South Street, and we would always go to the one cheesesteak place on 5th and South. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, what I can say is that nobody can make them anywhere near as good as in Philadelphia.
It's
And
goddamn
I've tried them
Amorosa
all.
rolls.
I've tried them all. There's places called Philly cheesesteaks.
Hmm.
They're, and no, it's the cheese whiz that they don't have.
It's the
Nobody
good shit.
Yeah, nobody thought it was just, nobody thinks it's just that cheap cheese whiz.
It's
chips.
got to
That's
be
all it
like
is.
kind of gross, like as a concept. Like a
Yeah,
cheesesteak can't be fancy. It's got to be like you got to think that this is a little bit of harmful, you know, while you're eating it.
exactly.
Like it could be
Yeah,
the last meal.
right. And hoagies too. Nobody
Mm,
knows what a hoagie is.
dude, I miss Wawa so much.
It's like a step up from 7-Eleven where they'll
Oh,
actually make sandwiches for you. Yeah, there's
it's
nothing like
beautiful.
that. There's nothing like that in California.
No.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in the Coachella Valley for a while too. So both ends of it, it's just like you can't win, you know, unless you're there.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. I miss it, but I don't have no family lives there anymore, so I don't really go back.
I
But
hear you.
I'm looking to go back to see my grandmother maybe.
There you go. Yeah, man, make a trip of it. Hit that Philly cheesesteak place. All right. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on for an interview. It's
No
been an
problem.
absolute pleasure. I am very stoked on this new album. I will probably have an interview up closer to release date to kind of line up with everything. But for now, everyone, Deron Miller, 96 Bitter Beings, he's got a new album out November 4th. It is called Synergy Restored. Check out the singles and check it out on release date. Deron, if you've got anything else you'd like to plug, please go for it.
Go to Facebook. We're easy to find. We're on all the socials. Obvious names: 96 Bitter Beans Official, Deron Miller Official. I try to talk to everybody. I want to hear. Tell me stories. Tell me anything. Talk about anything. I love talking to people. So, check out the album, like you said. I'm just really excited and stoked to get this record out. So I just want to get that word out as much as possible. Anybody that misses that CKY sound, we
Hell
have
yeah.
campaign and synergy to fill that void. So I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you having me on as well.
Of
And
course,
I'm looking
man.
forward to coming back.
Dude, thank you, man. Seriously, thank you so much again for coming on, man. Yeah,
No
I
problem.
really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, man.
of course, man.
Later, guys.